today we're going to introduce you to the basic tabs that we have within some details. Obviously, we'll introduce you to the VBA platform. It's important that you see all the interfaces and how it's all working together uh, at the first shot. And then we'll also be doing this second part, that is cleaning data perspective. Obviously, this is what is really important for data scientists and anybody who's using Excel in and out very regularly. Apart from this, yes, there are some things that are there within the tabs that I'll also be covering, right? So that's the first session that you're going to be doing. Second session is going to be on functions, and we have another professional called Amlan. He will be taking the next session. So functions, I've listed a few categories of functions that we'll be covering. Apart from that, we'll also be doing pivot tables, which again I will be taking. And then dashboarding and reporting and record and edit macros will be something that we are working on the content on how to put on it. But that's the last topic, which again Amlan will be taking, right? So that's what we have in the four uh, four sessions. Apart from that, we'll also have a lot of case studies and problem statements to solve, which I will share post today's session and the next session, that is functions. Next session is next session functions. So you get a lot of hands-on work to do, right? So that's the gist in which we are going to start. Okay, so I hope let's then start off. I hope you all know that we have moved into a very comfortable era where Excel is a lot better when we began first 8 or 9 years ago using it, right? That time there were a lot of things which we could not do, but today we could do it, and you're fortunate enough to be in this place where you're getting to learn Excel in this matured state, right? So without further ado, let me just begin with a blank workbook, right? And a workbook is basically defined as a placeholder for sheets which contains rows and columns, right? And there are limitations of the rows and columns that we have here. And as you can note, we have roughly around, XFD. And if you want to know uh, what column it is, right? If you just write a column function, you will see that we have roughly around 16,384 columns available with us, right? Quite similarly, we have around uh, these many rows, right? Around 10 lakh rows available within Excel, right? And you can have multiple sheets within Excel, and each of the sheets can be renamed as such, right? So what you're basically seeing is that um, you have an Excel workbook, and within that workbook, you have multiple sheets. Within that sheets, you have cells or ranges, right? So we can call this as a cell if it is represented with the idea of 1 comma 1, which means row 1 column 1, right? That is R comma C representation. Let me just enlarge that for you. If it is 1 comma 1 or row comma column, that's the representation. That's going to be a cell representation, right? And if it is a ranged representation, it's called A3, right? So basically you have the column name and the row, right? So that's the idea in which we have represented, right? So that's a range, and this is a cell, right? So let me just do that. That is a cell, right? And this is a range. Now, can you tell me what cells would look like, or what range in plural form will look like? Any idea, guys? Yes, that's right. So we have something called as A3 colon A15, right? Let's take a smaller one. Let's take 10. right? So what this does, guys, is that if I select A3 and then go to A10, that means I have selected the range A colon A3 colon A10, right? So that is a collection of cells that is available, right? So that's one of the basic areas in which we need to understand the difference between what is a range and a plural range, right? A multiple range. So it can be a singular one or it can be a multiple cells also, right? If we change this to B, what it means it's basically changing from A to B10. That's a selection that's happening, right? Similarly, in cells, uh, we cannot really do this colon representation. So what we will do is basically say 3 comma 2, 3 comma 1, 2, it'll be 10 comma 2, right? So you will right now will not be referencing this as much, but you will come across this kind of notation when you use Excel VBA, right? So this is just to ensure that you know what is happening between cells and ranges, right? So that's about basic cells and ranges. Any doubts, guys? If you have a doubt, you can just say yes, no, understood this concept, and then we'll move ahead. Okay. Which part, Venkat? Okay, Venkat, we'll not do repeats like this because we have time session. So you can watch the recording. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Anyways, guys. So that's about your ranges. Now, there are a couple of shortcuts that you need to remember, right? And I'm just switching gears in terms of what are the basics you need to know as a person, right? So some of the basics that we need to do. So when you want to enter something on the cell, you enter it like this, whatever it is, um, board infinity. Now there is a shortcut that's called F2, which basically helps you edit that particular cell, right? Now that's one of the key things to know about it. However, now if I want to, I mean, if you want to format this particular cell or any particular number, right? Sorry, any number, right? Um, I mean, sorry, my fault. So when you enter a text data, you will notice that is automatically aligned to the left hand side, and something like this is automatically aligned to the right hand side, right? Now, um, another thing, so this is a text and a string, right? So we have a text and a string, right? Sorry, we have a text and then a text or a string, and then we have a number, right? So when we have this, you'll see that alignment is left and right, and I'll tell you why this is key to any data scientist, because when you're going to get into a lot of more details, you're going to see that your data will be divided into numericals and non-numericals, right? And Excel just signifies and gives you the first visual clue by the alignment. However, in the real world, right, things don't happen always in the way that it should be. So for example, if I do something like this, uh, 1st Jan 2019, right? I wrote something and then it aligned to the right. So I wrote a particular non-alphabet, I mean non-numeric data, but it aligned to the right. Can you guess what is happening here? Is what I have written here, is it a date or it should be a number? What is it? What I typed right now is a date. Okay, it's a number or a string. Somebody says string numbers. Okay, it's a number, right? And why is it a number? Any guesses, guys? Okay. Yep. So here's the concept, guys. Although this looks like a text, right? It is a number. And hence the next important topic that you should know is called formatting. So if I type a number 0, right aligned, which means it's a number, but hey, can I format this number to a date format and say, okay, then you get 0 January 1900. This is an interview question, guys. What is the first date on Excel? And that will be 0 January 1900. The counter for dates starts from 0 January 1900, which is represented by 0. Now, if I type 1, which means it changes to 1st January to 1900, right? Now, if I reformat this particular data to a general format or a number format, right? Let's do it for general now. You'll see it's 43466, right? Now, what is formatting like? Formatting is basically putting up some makeup or dressing well and going out, right? You're the same person, right? Just imagine you are a number, but you wear something and then you go out, you are formatted or you're looking different for going out, right? So like, for example, we go out for parties, we'll be wearing something different. We go for a visit a friend's house, we'll wear something different, right? We'll go to office, we'll wear something different. That's formatting, but it doesn't change what you are, right? Inside you, who you are is what it is, right? Similarly, a cell can hold a particular number or a text, but what you choose to format and show it as will define what the context is. So for example, I showed you a date, which is a number, but you can format this to a dollar format, right? And this suddenly becomes US dollars, 43,466. I can rechange this date to a date format, right? And say, okay, and this will change it to date again, right? It's the makeup that is put up on that particular number that defines the context of that particular number, right? So in formatting, how will you get into the formatting? That is your home tab and in number, right? So I'm just jumping the gun in this particular concept, but is one of the strongest concept that everybody should be aware of how this particular text and numeric thing works. Cool, guys? Okay, any doubts, guys? Quickly, yes, no? Okay. Now that I've introduced you to the Excel platform, sheets, and then cells, right? Now it's time for me to introduce to the ribbon. Now what this ribbon does is it is a it is a number, it is not a number. I have put a comma, so it become an alphanumeric. If I put a dot, it will become a number. Good, good observation, Ruchi. Right? Yes, and I can reformat this particular thing to be a number, right? And have a comma separated format, right? And you'll see that it's formatted in this particular way to get you that comma, right? So that's the way we see it, right? So always look at the format. So if I look at this format and go to the number part of it and do whatever with it, add decimals or change it into date, it's still going to remain 1, 1 because it's a text. It doesn't know what to do with it, right? So that's really the core essence there. Okay, there are other confusing things which you will come across also, guys. I mean, nice point, Ruchi. So if I take this date and put a single colon on front of it, it becomes a text, right? So often you receive dates from systems like SAS, Oracle, and all that in this format, right? Then you just have to convert this particular format into the real date format and then use it. And we'll see some of the examples there. Yep, cool. Thanks, Ruchi, for that. Okay, so now we've known some of the basic elements that we should be knowing for on Excel, but now let's just, as per our course structure, let's look at all the tabs that are available here, right? So you have a home tab where you have basically your formatting, cut, copy, paste details. Guys, cut, copy, paste is like the core of how we do things, right? I cannot imagine how much life would be harder if these paste options that Excel has would not be there, right? So that's one of the things. Then you have fonts. Obviously, this is very known. We have alignment, merge and center, all of these common things that you see in Word or PowerPoint. We have a number formatting in Excel, which is one of the core essence. Like if you change it to a dollar or a date and whatever, the meaning changes, right? So it's very important. We have conditional formatting, format as table. We're going to see some of these examples here. Uh, Add, insert, delete, format cells. That's the area. To the tabs. I don't know how I can zoom into the tabs. Hey Sadesh, can you? I mean, I cannot really zoom in. Let me see if there are some options here. I don't have the options really here. Okay, okay, cool, no problem. So let's continue. Um, yeah, so that's about the tabs that are available, and we're going to see some of these important options here, like for example, conditional formatting and format as table. We've already seen one option. Uh, and then obviously sort and filter is another thing which is there. And apart from that, we are also going to see something called as a flash fill, right? So that's one of the things that we'll be seeing. Insert tab is something, it's all visual. Anything that has to be visual re-represented, that will be there in the like this particular tab. And you have another concept called as pivot table, which I'll be taking again, which will be a elaborate concept of Excel, along with chartings and all of these information like charts, right? This is going to be used for dashboarding and all that thing. And your normal things like inserting smart art and all of that, which you have in your presentation words or whatever it is, right? Then we have slicers, which are for pivot and for tables, and some other things which we don't regularly use, right? Page layout, really, we come very less frequently to this unless we have to make a PDF or something like that. But yeah, this we are not going to cover so much in detail, right? Formulas tab is your functions, which is going to be taken by Amlan. So we're not going to cover all the concept, except we're going to cover this particular name manager concept, right? So I'm going to teach you this one particular concept. Um, yeah, and rest of the options will be covered by Amlan, right? In the data tab is again what our focus will be today. Now in the data tab, obviously, since Excel is handling data, which means there has to be some really good options to use these things, right? So we have things like get external data, which is importing data into Excel, right? Get and transform is basically, you import data from external sources, but hey, is it clean? Is it usable, right? So that's where this particular table helps us use that. Connections is basically we use this often in corporates where we connect to databases, which is residing on SQL Server, and then we basically make a connection to that so that we can refresh whenever there is a new data within that, right? Sort and filter is a concept that we'll be covering. It's called remove duplicates or deduping concepts will be covered here. And all of the data tools here like flash tool, text to column, remove duplicates will be covered, right? In what if analysis, I'm going to just cover goal seek, and others you're free to do it, right? And some of the things here, right? And I'm going to just introduce you to the data analytics, which is again in further you're going to use it, but quite a heavy tab for data analysts, right? This is where we would ideally spend most of our time in, apart from home and insert, right? So these four, home, insert, formula, and data, are one of the some of the key tabs that we spend in. Review is basically when you want to lock your sheets and protect your sheets, and don't want others to edit this particular sheet. So that's one of the important things here. View tab basically has things like freeze panes, which basically helps in visually getting a good view on the data while scrolling, right? So I'm going to cover one of these examples here, right? On the right hand side, you'll also see something called as a macros, which again is a vast topic, but we can basically have macros options within this tab, right? But uh, that's it, right? On the developer tab, we basically have your Visual Basic window, which will basically, if you click on this Visual Basic window, it will fire up another window where it will list all the sheets that are available there. You can insert a new module, write a piece of code here, and then start executing things or automating things, right? So it's just the way it is, right? So for example, if you want to do sum of two numbers, so you just say sub my sum, right? So and then let's say x comma y, and my sum is equal to x plus y, right? So I just wrote a sum function, right? And then I can basically reuse this particular data here and say 1 comma 4, and then I get that particular output, right? So VBA is basically a place where you can write a piece of code and then reuse within. Yeah, so the developer tab basically has a lot of form controls. There are two types of controls. This is called the form controls and the ActiveX controls. This is done primarily without any VBA, and ActiveX controls require some amount of VBA before you can start doing it, right? So these are some of the basic things that are getting used while we do things. Like, for example, hey, I want to do a small selection, things like, cities, something like that, right? So you can just insert a small form control, um, sorry, and then you basically can give a particular the range that is available there, and then give a cell link, right? So basically what happens is when you select something, right, a number is there, then you can reuse this number to create dashboards and all that thing, right? So small things like that, which basically helps you create dashboards, not just static reports, right? So these kind of things are available within this place, right? So that's all the tabs that we basically have, and we're going to attack some of them step by step. Yeah, so these are the tabs, and for those who don't have the developer tab, the way to get it is you go to the options window here, go to the customize ribbon. It's called the ribbon here, and you'll see that all the things that are there within this place have been listed and are ticked here. So this developer tab will be unticked, right? So if it's unticked, what will happen is it will be not visible, right? So for your all of you, mostly that will not be visible. You can go to the options tab, customize ribbon, and check this particular option, right? So that will be visible. Quite similarly, on the data tab, these things will not be available. So you can go to the options again, go to add-in section, right? These are some external add-ins which attach to this particular software, Excel and then enhance its capabilities. So those things will be available here. You can just say go to manage and check all the add-ins that you want to really use, right? So that way you get these add-ins. Okay, yeah. So that's really the basics or the window in which you'll have to learn Excel, and heavily it's skewed around using home, insert, uh, formulas and data, right? So that's there, and the next load is basically on the developer type. So that's your entire portfolio. Now switching gears to the next part of Excel, um, and that is called a concept of referencing, right? So and fixing, right? So referencing and fixing. So what does that mean, right? So let me just open up a small file which I can do that. Mm, let me just say that. Okay, so this file should be good enough for referencing. Okay. Anyway, so we have a file where we have some travel expenses of the first quarter, right? And that will be meaning Jan, Feb, March, and then we have San Francisco, all the details, and then we have uh, total, average, highest, and lowest, and quantity, and so on, so forth, right? Now, let me just get rid of all these things, right? And let's do this particular thing, right? Anyway, so here's what we'll so here's what we'll be doing. So what we'll be doing here is, in terms of reference, right? We know we're going to do sum of a range, right? So when you say sum of a range, I'll basically select it from B6 to B12, right? And then close this bracket. Now what this does is it selects the range, and when I drag this particular thing towards the right hand side, you'll see that it basically changes the range from one place to another place, right? Uh, what if I said F4, and I'm going to explain what this means in a while. So when I did F4 here and drag this particular cells beside here, you will see that the reference that we have to those particular cells will not change. That will be fixed, right? So that's one of the natures of what this referencing concept is, right? Um, your your cell copying, right? And what I did here was basically do a copying. I just copied uh, the cell, the formula from one place to another cell, and I can also simply copy and paste these details also, right? But since it is a fixed formula, it's not going to change, right? However, if I want to change this to the normal way and ensure that everything else is getting some, I'll do this, copy or drag it, and then get these details, right? So that's the first thing that you need to know. The second thing that you need to know is the types of uh, the types of fixing we can do on a particular thing, right? So for example, if I say equal to E6, right, that's the first way of writing it, right? The second way of doing the same thing is if I say F4, it basically fixes both your column and your row. Now you'll know what this is in a while, but let me just show you what are the other type, right? So this is F no, I mean this is just when you press equal to, you will get this. This is F4 one time one, and you can do 4 times of it, right? So if I do F4 is equal to E6, I'll say F4 once, twice. Then what's happening? Sorry. What's happening here is that This is fixing both row and column, right? This is fixing only row. Next one is fixing only column, and then this one is becoming getting back to normal, right? So that's how this particular thing works. Now if I do this again, so for 1, 2 and 3, now this time the column got fixed, right? So that's what happens there. Now again, if I do equal to and do this, I do F4 once, twice, thrice and 4 times, and you'll notice that it gets back to this particular stage, right? So when you do this, guys, keep in mind that this will define how your logic is built on extracting a certain thing, right? So let me just take a few examples, and I want you all to first give me an idea of what kind of fixing I need to do, right? Okay, so here's the first challenge that I posed to you, right? I want to know, I want to know what is the percentage of San Francisco's contribution to the total expense here, right? So if I have a total expense of say 94,452, but I just want to know what is the contribution, what is the percentage contribution of Francisco, right? And this question is not for those people who know Excel intermediately, for those who do not know at all, right? What are you going to type here such that it will help me get the percentage? Then percentage would mean 14,000 divided by 94452. Any ideas, guys? Any ideas, guys? Yes, that will be the answer, but how will you do it here? Yes, okay, E6 by E14. E6 by E14. Um, yes. Okay, now that 100 thing we'll have to get rid of, because in Excel, what you can do is you can format the number to whatever thing that you want, right? So you need not do the multiplication. You simply do it and then format it to whatever format you want, right? So that's really an advantage. Okay, good. So I got this. Now I want not only for this particular San Francisco, but I want for all of them. So how do I get it? Any ideas, guys? Good one, Kiran and Pratik. So how do I do it for all of them now? Okay, drag, correct. So if I do drag downwards, this is the problem. Kiran Kumar did it? Yes. Subhajyoti, yes, that's right. We have to fix it. So any questions, guys? What is the mistake here, guys? I guess most of you have already figured it out, but anybody did not understand what's happening here. You see that some of these things are getting error, some of the things are getting over 100%, which should not be ideally that thing. So who did not understand this particular concept of what's happening here? Okay, everybody's got it. Cool. So that's the F4 part. So if you do F4, which means it's going to fix that, or else, yes, yes, Vishal, I'm telling that. So just watch this, guys. So if I did E6 by this normal way, right, what's happening is not only this value is shifting, but it's also shifting the below reference point, right? And ideally, I want this to be here, right? Similarly, I want this guy not to shift down, but here. Similarly, I want this guy not to shift down, but to be here, right? So instead of that reference going down, 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 what we can do is fix it like this. If it is like this, we can just say F4 once and it fixes there. And then when I drag it down, it basically gives me what the percentage contribution for each of that particular state is, right? And it will be measured up to this particular as a reference, right? So if you see this blue one will keep moving down, but the E14 one will not move down, right? So that's how this particular uh, formula works. No, it doesn't causes problem. If you do multiply 100, often I've seen that we end up inflating certain numbers, right? So what will happen is when you basically have this not formatted into the um, percentage format, it will cause problems for Excel in inflating the number. I'll give you a simple example here. So for example, 100, I want 10% of 100, right? So if I say into 10%, right? uh, into 10%, what happens is Excel considers this percentage and then multiplies it, right? So this is one simple trick of how we use percentages within Excel, right? So it's much more better you do formatting, right? Formatting rather than multiplying 100, right? Remember, Sandesh, Excel is trying to make life easy for users. So adding another into 100 every time we do percentages is going to be a redundant effort, which is why formatting is the way to go, right? Okay, you can tell your senior that this is the real way to go, certified by Microsoft. Okay, anyway, so we used to have that sort of a problem in the older versions, which is now rectified, Sandesh. So that's really the key. Okay, now so yeah, so that's really how this particular referencing works, right? Now let me get you one more challenge, right? So if you've not nearly cracked this, but let's try another challenge here, right? So I have one. Now guys, I can do drag like this, and I'm going to do some tricks, which is I'm not going to introduce the topic, but I'm going to do some tricks, and very helpful tricks. So when I drag it, you'll see that something like this will come up, and I can say fill series, which will fill the numbers for me, right? Similarly, I can do 1 and 1.5 sort of a thing, and then if I select it and drag it down, it's going to know I have to increment by 0.5, and it's going to do it for me, right? But I just want 2, right? So I'm going to do that and increment till 5. Anyway, so we've got this number series, guys, and here's the output that I'm expecting from this by writing a formula here, right? And that's going to be 1 multiplied 1 times 1 is 1 times 2 is 2, 3, sorry, 3, 4 and 5, right? So that's 1 2 3 4 5. But in the next row I want 2 into 1, that is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, right? And so on. And the last cell that will be there, it will be having 25. Now, can you write a function? Can you write a formula that will help me get this particular numbers? Any ideas, guys? Those who use Excel already, please do not answer. Let the folks that are just learning wreck their brain in getting this output. Hint, it's the concept that we recently covered. So how do you do it? Any ideas, guys? Obviously, we will begin by multiplying this into this, but then what? Lock B1. Okay, I locked B1. Do you think this will give us the answer? Okay, let's try that. So if I drag it that side, and I can do it drag down also, that's a drag, right? Another shortcut, guys, is you select this entire cell, Control D, Control R will fill the cells, right? Again, I can select the entire cell, Control D, Control R will fill the entire cells. It will copy it here and there, right? So this is what's the problem, right? This guy is following us. It shouldn't. It should be here. Plus, this guy should keep changing, but it's not changing. I should get 25 here, but I'm not getting 25. So where's the problem? Okay, no locking. No locking, this is what will happen. We'll end up with a hugely enormous number. Is this big number? So what's happening? It's multiplying the up and side one, up and side one, up and side one, right? It should be ideally 3 and 3, but it's following that. Log A2. Yeah. Again, same problem, guys. Right? This is still not going to solve the problem. If you log both of them together, remember the cells are not going to change, right? So it's going to be continuously 1. Yeah, now we're getting closer. Yes. So I need to lock, yeah, A2 fix column. That's right. A2, I need to fix the column, right? For B1, remember B1 should not go down. It can go left. So what does that mean, guys? So how should we fix B1? Remember, I don't want this to follow me down. Correct. So we fix the row there, right? So that's how we fix it, right? Now if I drag it and drag it down, you'll see these guys are following each other, right? So that's the right way of doing it. So remember, guys, there are 3 types of formattings that you can do. I mean, fixings that you can do, and each time you press F4, you basically fix both the rows and columns, then you fix row, and then you fix column, and then it comes back to normal, right? So that's a really, really important functions to do this particular thing, guys, right? It's very, very important for working along, right? Similarly, you know how to do the sums and all that thing, right? Um, there are other things that you can also do with this particular thing, right? Hey, what's the percentage of each month's contribution to this particular total, right? So it will be something like a B6 divided by this particular guy and say F4, right? And you format this again uh, as a percentage, and you do this, right? So that way you're getting the percentages here, right? So a lot of these fixing references you will be getting in your problem statements a lot, and just ensure that you remember this F4 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 really, really well, right? Now the last thing that I want to cover on the referencing topic is in specifics with what it's going to mean for you to look at rows and columns, right? So how many of you have studied coordinate geometry? How many of you have studied coordinate geometry, guys? Okay, I guess everybody has studied. Yes, so we're going to do some amount of ideas around what the coordinate geometry is. Okay, so let's take the coordinate geometry reference, right? So this is your line. Let's insert another search line, right? Now, if this is your positive x, right? This will become negative x, right? If this is your positive y, then this will become your negative y, right? So what's happening here is that obviously if you want to reference a point here, it will be basically 1 comma 1. The concept here will be what? Minus 1 comma 1. The reference will be minus 1 1 comma 1. Here you'll get uh, 1 comma minus 1, and this will be minus 1 comma minus 1, right? So that's the way that the representations go with this particular. Is it okay now, guys? Ashutosh? Hello? Yeah, okay. Sorry, guys. Cool. Thank you. Anyway, so what I was saying, this is your coordinate geometry concept, but imagine Excel, right? Excel basically resides in this particular part of your um, uh, in coordinate geometry, and uh, fortunately, both of them are positives here, right? So it's going to be positive, positive, and in sorry, I'm not going to do that thing, but this is going to be this way. It's going to be positive columns, or just say columns, right? And this side it's going to be rows, and it's going to be positively marked, right? So this way it's columns, and this way it's rows. So that way you know what your cell is, right? So this cell becomes 1 comma 1, like I showed you earlier. This is 2 comma 2, 3 comma 3, 4 comma 4, and so on. This is 1 comma 2, 1 comma 3, and so on. This is 1 comma 1 comma 1, 2 comma 1, 3 comma 1, and so on, right? So that's how this particular thing works, right? If I had to represent it in a row comma format, I will simply use a row function, um, and I will concatenate this with a comma and give a column function, right, to give 1 comma 1 representation that we are looking for, right? So if I do this, sorry, and if I control do this, you will see I'm getting all these references that I have to work with, right? So that's really the trick within which we work with, right? So guys, just to this particular scenario, any doubts, right? So how this referencing works, right, in particular Excel? Okay, thank you, guys. Okay, cool. So we've done this now. Now that I'm like imparted all the basics that I can think of in terms of fixing and referencing, we will then move on to a certain concept called as the stylings here, right? Now the stylings, I'm going to cover concepts really quickly from now on, because you know now what things are happening there, right? So let me just open up something called as formatting numbers. Let's see what I have. Okay, no, I don't think so. This is a good one. Let's see if I can do this. No, end up opening the same file again and again. let's do this. Okay, anyways, guys, so we have a set of numbers available with me here, right? Let me just delete this. And let's call this states, right? So we basically have a certain amount of cells here, and I can clear all the formats available here, right, from this clear format. Now, the first concept in styles I want to cover is a format as table. Now, often when you have you're going to handle data, right? Things are going to work out. You're going to do a lot of mathematical operations and all that with this particular type of data, right? So if I just expand this data, if I want a sum of June, what I'll do is I'll say sum of June, and then close the bracket, and I get this particular sum, right? So when I get this sum, it is a fixed formula here. But here, if I can add few more rows to this, right, from this thing, and then let's say we can call this some other state that we have, right, and some four more states I've added. What it doesn't take into account is that it's not including this particular cells, right? So there is some level of intactness missing in this particular uh, some place, right? So what will happen is we will introduce a concept called as, so I'm just going to delete those rows here. Sorry, deleted them already. Yeah, and then I remove that sum files there. I'm going to format this as a table. Now, when I do format as a table, you'll notice that you get this design tab, and you now have an object called what is it, table, and then you can format this particular data in such a way, format this table and give it a name, right? So when I say there's a table name for it, I can just give this data as sales data or something like that, right? So when you do that, you'll see that it will be available within this particular list, right? So this is the entire selection of the data. Now when I select this data and then I say sum of June, you'll see that formula is written in a very different way. It's called sales data, the table name, and the column name within square bracket is mentioned here, right? So if I just change this to May, you'll see I'll get a sum of May, and if I change this to Feb, I'll get Feb sum, right? Isn't it a much more better to see it rather than seeing a range, right? So what we're trying to do here is that we're giving a range a particular name, right? And then we are sort of summing it up. Now, sum is note that the sum is 10,773. But here, let's add some more states, right? So I added four more state and call it state 1, 2, 4, or whatever it is. And you'll see that my sum has changed and expanded to this particular row, right? So it's automatically taking care of that calculation, right? So that's where this format as table really comes in handy, right? And very important concept, guys. You will often receive data with this particular thing, and I often see a lot of people convert this particular back to a range, right? And then use this particular format. And if you see that formatting change has made it something like C2 to C30, which again, if I add certain rows, it's not going to take in account, right? So it's really important that if you want to not have any mistakes in your type of data and something like that, please use the name manager, right? I mean, the format as table, right? So that way you're going to keep things intact. So let me just format this as table again. And unfortunately, it doesn't bring back that formula. So you'll have to delete this and then do that again, right? So I've got this information, and it sort of helps now to look at things in particular in perspective, right? So format as table, really important options for you if you want to make you want to have some accuracy in your data. Okay, so that's format is table, and obviously there's a lot of usages for this particular thing. I'm not going to go into so many details, but that's the primary usage. And if you select this table, and if you're having a design time up here with table and name and all that thing, you know this particular thing has formatted as a table. And there are some other quick and handy options. So for example, you don't want to do the sum written by yourself here. What you can do is you can say total row, and then sort of gives a total row. You can say first column branded and the last column branded, right? So that way you can brand some of these things, and you also can basically choose what you want in the below output here, right? So for example, by default here it says sum. You can say maximum, uh, maximum for all of these things, or minimum, or you know, count, or any of these things that you can think of, right? So usually you keep it at one particular way, but yeah, very handy functions for you if you have this particular total row. If you remove it, it's gone, but yeah, very handy if you want to use this concept, right? So that's format as table, and which is a really handy concept. Okay, moving on to the next topic. Now, conditional formatting is basically answering questions with how many of these rows, the sales that information that we have here, how many of them meet a certain criteria, right? So let's, for example, I want to identify all the states that in Jan, had a sales probably a bit less than 200, right? So if I select this particular column here and say conditional formatting, say highlight cells less than two, 200, and say okay, you'll see I can easily filter on those states using a number filter, and then identify all the states that did less amount within Jan, right? So that's when we are doing it. And similarly, if I take this format painter, format it on Feb, and you'll see that it'll automatically apply the same conditional formatting that we had within the next cell, right? And it's defined, right? Similarly, you can do the same for all of them. If you double click on the format painter, you can do it twice, right? And get this information, right? So a really handy option to select, get some highlights within the data, and sort of keeps you organized and visually appealing, giving the user, whoever you're sending the report to, a visual reference of what to look for within that particular table, right? So that's really what conditional formatting is. Um, and obviously, the other option that we have here is called um, format as cell styles, and this does not have any magic associated with it. However, it makes your reports look really beautiful if you used it in that particular format, right? For example, I use this particular format, right, as a sum, and then I can use another similar range format to make it look beautiful, right? So that's really where these things fitting, and obviously a lot helpful here. So just take a quick pause here, and um, take any questions or doubts you may have. I'm not covering all the options available here, but just any doubts so far on the concepts there. Okay, cool. Anyway, so conditional formatting, apart from the highlights rule, there are so many other different rules available here. I want you all to explore. Yes, Sadesh, please go ahead. Explore some of these options here, but this is primarily to give a visual reference. Yes, Sandesh, go ahead, please. Yeah. So if you do it, if you do it like this, that is selecting the entire column, then it will be applied on the entire column, right? But if I just do it to this particular limitation, then it's going to be within this particular. If you add another row, it is automatically it will automatically format it. But anything below that will not apply this rule. Right? So it's going to be only on the table there. Cool. So that's that. Now, so another thing that I would really want to show in this particular thing is that eh, deleting, right? And deleting cells within Excel is a really complicated issue. And one of the examples that I can think of right now is this particular example. So let's say I want to say delete this particular two cells. So if I say delete, you will see deleting is not so easy in Excel, right? You'll say shift cells up, which is the right choice. You have shift cells, left, up, entire row, entire column, and sometimes the entire row is selected. So if that is selected, what will happen is it will delete two columns from the table, which is a really painful way to deal with again, right? So if you delete two rows there, which means some data is getting deleted, right? So if you say delete here, right, what is the right way to do is say, let's say shift cells up, right? So if you say shift cells up, what will happen is these cells move up, right? So let me just show you an example. So if I say this delete as I shift cells up, you'll see that this guy has moved up, right? And shift cells left, if I delete this particular cells and say shift cells left, you'll see that these cells will sort of move inside here, which is again really a bad practice, which means the best way to delete this numbers is clear everything, clear all from this. That way no lift up, no shift up, and the data is also gone, right? So you have to take a judicious call on how you're deleting stuff, right? And clearing formats and all that thing, right? I would also, thumb rule here is that if you have data within that particular sheet, either this side or downways, do not delete. Always format, clear and format, right? So one of the key mistakes I see most of my team members doing is this particular scenario where they're just deleting stuff left and right, which impacts the data, right? So that's there. Inserting, again, you can say insert and it will insert a column. If you say insert here, it's going to insert a column here, and you can basically insert the data and it will be part of the table, which is really a good thing. Clear cells shortcut. See, I'm not a big shortcut guy, but if you want to learn shortcuts, if you press Alt, right, it will give you all these menu, right? And unfortunately, it just goes to Q only, right? It's not going up to here, but yeah, it's a Q. No. Oh, sorry. It can be Alt. So it's the Home tab. So if I go to Home tab, you have this particular options, then E, and then A, right? So that will be clear on, right? So if I have something here and then something like this, so it should be Alt H E A. That's a shortcut. Should I repeat once more? If you just press Alt once and leave it, it will give you this menu. Then you go to H, which again reopens these things. Then you go to E and then A, right? So that's how you do it. If you keep repeating these things, Alt H E A, will become a lot faster. But you have to remember all these cells. The more you use it, the more you'll know it. I'm not more of a shortcut guy, so I don't use so many shortcuts. Yeah, use few shortcuts, but not too many shortcuts. Okay, so that is on this particular thing, guys. Now, um, one more concept I just wanted to cover. I mean, some of the concepts I'm not covering here. It's on purpose. You can learn that. It's intuitive. But some of the important things that I need to cover, it's what I'm doing, right? Okay. So here's one of the cases that you will come across, right? So sometimes what happens is, you have certain data missing within the table, right? So I have certain rows missing, right? And what I want to do is basically delete all these rows that are missing, right? And there are multiple ways to do it. I can simply select this and select blanks and then delete this thing, right? So delete, when I say delete here, I would do delete row for such that all of these entire rows are deleted, right? Now, there's another option that is also available, right? You select this entire column, right? And say go to special, right? And say select blanks, right? So when it select blanks, it basically selects these certain items, which I can then say delete, right? And say delete rows, which basically deletes the rows within that particular selection, whichever has blank rows, right? So really, really important function. Not many of the Excel users really use it. So I would invite you to basically start using this go to special whenever this scenario comes, right? And trust me, these kind of scenarios come a lot. Whenever you're exporting data from SFDC, Oracle, SAP, right? You're going to get a lot of data from different data sources, and this handling blanks will become one of the major things that you do, right? So that's really the options that are available here. Apart from that, the last concept that I want to cover on this tab is called the flash fill. Now, many of you who work on Excel, intermediate users also will find this very, very interesting. So for example, you have something called as a full name, right? So for example, let's say Aditya Dave, Rahul date, Sandesh Patkar, right? So Raj Naruka. I skipped Kiran Kumar because he has a long name, so I wanted to be short. Anyway, so I want to extract the first name and the last name within this thing, right? So the first name, obviously, Sharmaji. Okay, let's put Sharmaji also. Okay, and obviously there are some names which will be also like this. Raj Kumar Rao. And some have a single name. Let's see. So let's see what happens with these guys, right? So I want to extract this particular first names with it. Intermediate users, first I want you all to answer this question of how do you get this first name here? Any ideas, guys? I just want to extract the first name here. Text split, yes, that's one of the options. Left function, yes. Both are right answers. Yeah, that's also that's right. So with left function, yeah, text to column and left function, that's the right, really a good way to do it, right? So we're going to learn some of the string functions to do it, and we're going to also cover text to column also. But for now, I just want to cover flash fill before we move to text to column. Anyway, so this way is really very easy. It's called machine learning doing the work for you. So when I say Aditya Rahul, it automatically predicts what the next things to be, and I say enter, it automatically fills it. That's flash fill working for you guys. It automatically identifies what needs to be done, and then it automatically gets this for you, right? And then it predicts, right? If it doesn't predict so well and it doesn't do it, you say flash fill, sorry, flash fill, and then it fills it for you, right? Except the first name, it doesn't really know what to do. So obviously you have to guide it here. Okay. And it flash fill is so fast. So basic thing is you say Aditya, right? Press enter, say Rahul, and it will automatically predict what it needs to be doing, right? Say enter, and it flash fills this information for you. Really handy, guys, right? Tandava, Sandesh, really handy thing, guys, right? Okay, now it'll come. Yes, it does come in the latest versions of Excel, right? So it's really helpful. And it's previously those who have used Excel, they really know you, right? Some things like AAA, BBB, CCC, right? Something like this would take a hell of a work to extract. But now if I can easily do it by this. Right, so it automatically gets these details for me within this particular things, right? So very useful, guys. You're some of the old Excel users don't really know this option, so those who are learning this particular thing, you're going to be definitely in big advantage when you're using this, right? So go show off these skills whenever you are there, right? And trust me, guys, this has saved a lot of time for me in doing basic things which ideally had to be done through left function and all that, right? So really useful. Cool. Anyway, so moving gears to another concept that we come across a lot. Remove this. So text to column. So the other way that we do this particular thing is on the data tab, and I'm going to begin with the text to column since we are in the same topic. I select this data here, and I want to basically divide this data into two, full name and last name, right? So what I can do is I can say text to column, right? And I can say delimited, and delimited would mean that any special character exists between what you're trying to separate and all that thing. The next step, you'll be able to see that. So you have different options available here, and for this case, we have space as an option, right? So we say space and say next, and say finished, right? So what this does is basically it takes each of the space as a delimiter, and then it divides the data into different columns, right? The only disadvantage is that if you have three names such as this, you need to know what is happening there, right? So that way, when you are able to identify it, you're able to get this particular information that way, right? So you need to be mindful about that. But yeah, that's how text to column is used, right? So text to column is basically used to divide a certain amount of data into certain nature, right? So there's another thing that I want you all to know is that text to column can also be used for dates, and this is one simple trick which I really love, right? So when you have data from sources like SAP, Oracle, and all that, the dates usually will come in this particular format. So let me just type that format for you. So it's like, let's say, random between 40,000 to 50,000. Right, I'm going to format this as date. Right, this is formatted as date. I just want to make it a short format. Okay, Control Shift 3 is a much more better format. So I just use a shortcut called Control Shift 3. So I have this date. Now I'm going to copy and so I've written some formulas here, guys. So if I do copy and paste special values, you're going to see that it basically has some random dates, but it's the date format, right? So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully select this and make it into text, right? So if I add a colon, it converts it into text, right? So it's all into text now. So what I can do is I can go to the data tab, say text to column, keep going next, right? And say next. In this particular tab is where the magic is, right? So uh, what happens is you can say state selection here, and you can tell what the format is in this particular date, right? So if I say it's DMY, it understands it's DMY, and when you say finish, it converts it into date, right? So text to column is used in this nature where you are basically able to take something and take a date which is not a date, but you know that it's a date. You can do text to column and then convert it into dates, right? So I'll just repeat the step once more. What you can do is, if first you need to identify whether it's a date or no. So if you say control 1, right, or go to the home sheet and say format here, right? If you choose general, ideally a number should be showing here, or numbers you will be seeing. If it's not a number, which means it's a text, and you know that visual cue, it's on the left aligned, so it's text, which means this is a date, which is not in a date format. So I need to go to the data tab, text to column, next, next, and say DMY as a format and say finish. Right, that will convert the non-date into dates, and then if you recheck this information by pressing Control 1 and going to the general, you'll see that a number will appear versus that particular thing that is there, right? So that's text to column for you guys. Any doubts so far, guys, on this particular scenario? Okay, cool. So we're going to really quickly, it's called random between. It's called random between. There are two of these functions. One is random between and one is rand. So rand basically generates a random number from 0 to 1, and a rand between takes a whole number, right? So you can say minimum 0 and then maximum any number that you set, and it's going to get you a random number, right? And each time you do something, the numbers will change, right? So it's a volatile function. Its work is to generate random numbers whenever something happens on the sheet, right? So usually what I do is I copy it and then say paste special values, which then converts the function into just values, so that next time when I type something, it doesn't really change the values there, right? So that's usage when we want to generate some random numbers within that. Okay, guys, so that's on the data tab, we basically covered text column. Now we are going to do, we covered already flash fill. I'm going to do remove duplicates, and something that you might have gotten access to, and some of my videos are already available on this, on the content edX platform that you have access to. And I'm going to use the same file that I use usually in my session. Let me see where that is. Okay, where did I put that data? Yeah, it's yeah. Yeah, Rahul. So basically what happens is if you do a random number here, and this is a pay special option, guys. So if I do something here, it keeps changing. So if you don't want to change, copy and then say paste special values, right? That way it changes and it doesn't have that formula once there. Okay. Paste special, yes. We'll come to that. I knew that question will come somewhere there, but we'll come to that, Ruchi. So you'd be happy to know that Excel has a lot of paste options. So if I do this and paste special, you'll see that these many paste options are there, right? I'll really quickly show you one of the paste. I mean, let's just cover it so that it's easier for me to move. Okay, anyway, so look at this data, guys. So I have certain data available with me, and let's say, for example, I want to divide this by 10, just for random sake, right? So I want to divide this particular thing by 10, right? So what I can do is I can take this 10, copy it, right, and say paste special, right? And I can say I can I can do an operation with it, right? So I can say divide it by 10 and say okay. You'll see that the numbers will be divided by 10, right? So that's paste for you. Similarly, as you can notice, I have paste special, which basically can add, subtract, divide, and all that thing, right? And it can also skip blanks if there are some blanks within the data and not paste within that thing, right? Similarly, I can copy this. I mean, let's say I can copy these values, say paste special, and transpose this value. So when I transpose, it basically takes it from this and pastes it like that, right? So that's paste special. Uh, no, so clear format is Ruchi for a very different purpose. It removes the value within cell, but copy paste is something that you're taking some. It's like you're taking water from one bowl and taking it to another bowl, right? The information will not disappear anywhere, but it will be pasted uh, really nicely in a format that you really want, right? So that's very special for you. And there are so many other options. The options that I regularly use are these. So where is that? Yeah. So I have this sum one, right? And then I have formats available with me, right? So if I want to, I have this formats available with me. And let's say I have something that I want to copy and paste on top of these things, right? So things like, let's say I did a sum function here, right? And then I'm copying this and I paste this on top of it, although it gets the number that I want, but the formatting disappears. So what I can do is I can copy and then I can say paste special. I can say just the formulas. I don't want to paste any other details. I just want to paste the formula. So when I say that, what it does, it retains the formatting and just paste the some details that are there, right? I can just do it again. I can simply say paste and paste special, and you can have a direct option for you here also. It's called this one, formula, paste formulas. And if I do that, it just pastes the formulas, doesn't copy the formatting, right? Sometimes you can do copy and then paste special, and you can just say paste the formats only, right? So when you say paste the formats, it just pastes the format and doesn't leave anything else, right? Quite similarly, so this is where I can clear, right? This is, I don't want anything in that cell, so I clear it, right? Now, another thing that you can do is, let's say I have this cell thing, right? I can copy it. I can say paste special and say column width, which will basically copy and paste the column width, right? So, I mean, paste special is a really good option when you are trying to copy something and trying to paste it to a destination or within the same place. Uh, it'll be really helpful. Okay, guys. So don't get too disheartened. Special is really a talent to use. So there are a lot of options, a lot of variations. You're going to discover this a lot, but just remember you have a plethora of options in Pay Special. We always have these jokes in our data science industry where we speak about, doing things like copy paste, right? So if you're master in copy paste, you are doing good as a data science guy, right? So just a joke, but yeah, all we do is copy paste, but there is a lot of science to copy paste. Okay, moving on. We have just quite some time left and some more topics to cover. So we have done that. Remove duplicates. Remove duplicates is what I wanted to cover. So let's just quickly get on to remove duplicates, and then we're going to move on to next concept. Um, the first example. So here's the thing, guys. Let me just do that. Okay. So here's the thing, guys. What is remove duplicates? Remove duplicates is a way to find what are the unique number of records within a particular column, right? So for example, I have product names with me. You can just ignore the table, but here, just look at some of the data that I have. It's transaction data, and there's a customer ID, and he purchased certain details, certain products, right? So within this data, I want to know what are the distinct type of product names. So what I can do is I can copy this guy and paste it here and say data remove duplicates, right? It's the data tab remove duplicates. We just run the data tools here and say okay, and you will see that only 4 different products are there that are available within this transaction table, right? So that's how you know you're going to use remove duplicates for, right? And some of these options are available on my YouTube channel and on the Ednext platform that you have. Just have a look at these remove duplicates. There's a lot of science to how this remove duplicates work, and it is really helpful, right? So just to further this and how this is useful is, let's say if I want to find out what are the sales, what is the profit amount by each of the product, right? I can simply just say some ifs, and you're going to learn all of this. Don't be too bothered about this, right? So I'm going to go to this, and I want to say this profit amount, right? So it's going to be table 1 and profit amount, right? Comma, I want table 1, and I want the product name, comma, I go back to my data and I want this particular guy, right? So close the bracket. You will see that what I got from here is the total sales by each of this product names, right? So if I remove the duplicates, I'm able to do a lot and try to get some information out of this particular scenario, right? So that's remove duplicates for you, where basically you're trying to take some data and try and get a unique number of values that are present within that particular column. Right now, this is only useful when you have repeated values within a column. Anything such as customer ID will, even if you do remove duplicates, what will happen is all of them are unique, and you'll find that no duplicate will be removed from this particular table, right? And to date, guys, remove duplicate has been one of the most widely used functions. I deal with a lot of customer data and marketing data, and there's no time where I have not used remove duplicates to check, verify, see the product, see the unique customers, and all of these things, right? So it's a very important function, and I invite you to watch all of these things again, right? So in the interest of time, there are so many things I can cover, but I'm going to cover sort and filter next. Data validation and all that is a primary, very secondary thing. So I'm going to skip some of these things. Some of these things I'm going to skip, and I'm going to do basically sort and filter, which is one important thing that we need to master as well, right? So take it with me, guys. I mean, it's not a very it's not a, don't think that this is a very easy concept. Sort and filter has a lot of details, and I'm going to show you one of the examples also. But first, let me just show you what is filter, right? So Control Shift L is a shortcut to turn on the filters, and then basically check our data based on certain criteria. So, for example, I work with a lot of countries, so I usually have a lot of filters working there with me, right? So if I say direct, it basically selects all the rows attached direct. I can also say units sold greater than a certain amount, let's say greater than 100. Say okay, and I get all the customers that has greater than 100 sold units sold, right? So these are the way to filter, and sort is basically used to take criteria and sort this particular thing, right? So for example, let's say what's the product, um, let's say one example. Okay, so let's take this example. What is the maximum sales amount sold to a customer in a sales channel, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say sales channel as an option, and then I'm going to take sales amount as another one, and I'm going to say largest to smallest. Say okay, which will basically give me the highest sales amount by a particular customer, um, uh, on the top, right? So if you see direct, the maximum that you have will be 23803, right? So if you keep scrolling down, you'll see there's an online channel, and the first one that occurred is 3016, which is the highest sold within that particular um, uh, thing, right? So if I take this particular information, right, and this particular information, just copy it to the next tab, right, and I say remove duplicates, right? Now I just want to remove duplicates on the sales channel and say okay. You will see there will be 4 duplicates. I mean, it's 4 rows left, and each of the rows will hold the value which has a maximum sales within that particular channel for a customer, right? So I can even get the customer information to know who that customer is. Um, and as you can see, this is an outcome of a remove duplicates and sort combination, right? So I can just uncheck customer name and sales amount and say okay. You'll see I'll get 3 customers that bought highest amount in each of these categories, right? So really it depends on the question that people ask, but that's how you do remove duplicates within a particular data set. And obviously there's a lot of science on how you can sort and filter and then do remove duplicates, right? So really important concept, guys. So just see the videos that are there on EduNext and further it, right? So all I'm trying to do is get you all of these concepts, small pockets of concepts within this data, so that you know very well how to use these things, right? So that's that.